What if the kindest voice in your life is actually a trap, and you've been walking into it on purpose? In this story, one simple line turns into a hidden hallway where every door leads to the same bad ending. Welcome to Momentum Mind. Today you'll learn how games hijack your words, steal your calm, and keep you stuck through the world of Glassbridge and the institute where masks talk back. Chapter 1: The Waiting Room of Smiles. The city of Glassbridge liked to pretend it was calm. From above, it looked like a polished board laid out for polite pieces. Straight streets. Neat rooftops. Windows that reflected the sky like someone had ironed it. But down where people walked, everything had a faint tremble, like a string pulled too tight. You could feel it in the way strangers held their shoulders. You could hear it in the way they laughed a moment too quickly, as if laughter were a ticket they had to show at the door. On a narrow street where the shops sold quiet things, pens that never leaked, clocks that never complained, there stood a building with a brass plate by the entrance. The plate did not shout. It did not beg. It simply said the Institute. Inside was a waiting room that smelled of tea and old paper. The chairs were soft but firm enough to remind you were still in the world. On the wall, a painting showed a pond with lilies and a heron standing perfectly still, as if patience were a skill you could learn by staring at it. A young man named Lio sat with his hands folded like he was holding an invisible cup. His eyes kept drifting to the door that led deeper into the building. Behind that door was Dr. Berne, a man people spoke about in the same tone they used for bridges that didn't sway and ships that always found harbor. Lio's friend Mara sat beside him. She had a habit of looking as if she had already answered a question before it was asked. Her knee bounced softly, a nervous rhythm she tried to hide by crossing her legs and uncrossing them again. Across from them, a woman with silver earrings turned a page in a magazine but didn't read. Her mouth held a small smile that seemed carefully practiced, like a mask she wore even when no one was watching. Lio leaned toward Mara. "Do you think he'll see it?" he whispered. Mara didn't ask what he meant. They both knew. He meant the thing that happened when they talked to people. The strange shifts. The way a simple sentence could turn into a trap. The way a friendly chat could become a tug-of-war. The way, after it was all done, you felt as if you had played a game you hadn't agreed to. Lio had started noticing it at the docks where he worked. Men would speak about ropes and cargo and weather, but the words weren't only about those things. A foreman would say, "You always manage to make a mess of it." And it wasn't just about spilled grain. It was about making someone small. Someone would reply, "Well, if you told me properly." And it wasn't about instructions. It was about blame, passed like a hot stone. And the oddest part was how familiar it all felt, like a play everyone knew by heart, but no one admitted they were acting in. The door opened. A woman with short hair and kind, alert eyes stepped into the waiting room. "Dr. Berne will see you now," she said, and her gaze landed on Lio and Mara. They stood. The air seemed cooler beyond the waiting room, like the building was made to sharpen your thoughts. They followed her down a corridor where the carpet muffled footsteps, as if even sound was invited to behave. Dr. Berne's office was simple. A desk. 2 chairs. A shelf with books that looked used, not displayed. On the wall hung a diagram, circles connected by lines, like a map of some hidden town. It made Lio uneasy, the way maps sometimes do, because they suggest there are places you have been without knowing their names. Dr. Berne rose as they entered. He was not tall. Not imposing. His power, if he had it, was quieter. It sat in his eyes, in the way he looked at you like you were a puzzle he respected. "Sit," he said, and when he spoke the word it felt like an invitation rather than an order. Lio and Mara sat side by side. Dr. Berne took his seat as well. He didn't reach for a notebook. He didn't ask for a name. He waited, the way you wait when you believe the other person will eventually give you what matters. Mara broke first. "We keep getting into the same kinds of conversations," she said, and her voice carried irritation that sounded like exhaustion wearing a sharp coat. "It's like we're stuck in loops with people. And we walk away angry or guilty or—" She stopped, searching for the right word. "Hollow," Lio said softly. Dr. Berne nodded once, as if the word clicked into place. "Tell me a recent one." Lio swallowed. He pictured the docks. The foreman, Rusk, with his heavy belt of tools and his voice like gravel. "Rusk told me I was careless," Lio began. "He said it in front of everyone. I tried to explain, but the more I spoke, the worse it got. He kept saying I was making excuses. I felt like I was trapped. So I snapped back. I said he was unfair. Then he looked almost pleased, like he'd been waiting for me to do that. Afterward I felt ashamed, and he acted like he'd been the reasonable one all along." Dr. Berne leaned back slightly. "How did it start?" Lio frowned. He came up while I was tying a load. He said, "You're going to drop that, aren't you?" Mara let out a breath that was almost a laugh. That's exactly it. It's like they set a stage. And we step onto it. Dr. Berne's eyes flicked to the diagram on the wall. There are different ways people speak, he said. Not just the words, but the place inside them where the words come from. He stood and walked to the wall. He pointed at 3 shapes on the diagram, arranged like a triangle. One part of us speaks like a parent, he said. His finger tapped the top. It scolds. It teaches. It protects. Sometimes it comforts. Sometimes it judges. He moved his finger to another shape. One part speaks like a child. It wants. It fears. It rebels. It obeys. It plays. It sulks. Then the third. And one part speaks like an adult. It notices. It asks. It chooses. It deals with what is real. Lio stared at the diagram. It wasn't the shapes that unsettled him. It was how instantly he could feel those parts inside himself, like 3 voices he had always carried but never named. Dr. Berne returned to his chair. In a clean conversation, he said, the adult in one person speaks to the adult in another. It's direct. It's about what is happening. Mara's fingers curled around the edge of her chair. And what we're doing is not clean. Dr. Berne's gaze sharpened slightly, but not unkindly. Often, people invite you into something else. A game. The word made Leo's stomach tighten. Game. That was exactly what it felt like. But games were supposed to be fun. These were sticky. These left bruises you couldn't point to. Dr. Berne continued. A game is a pattern. It repeats. It has hidden rules. It looks ordinary on the surface, but underneath it has another message. And it ends with a familiar feeling. Mara spoke carefully. Like shame. Like anger, Lio added. Dr. Berne nodded. Those are prizes in a way. Not pleasant prizes, but familiar ones. People collect them, often without knowing they are doing it. Lio blinked. Why would anyone want that? Dr. Berne's mouth softened. Because familiarity feels safe, even when it hurts. Because the game gives structure. Because it proves an old belief. Because it lets someone avoid a fear they can't face directly. Mara looked away, as if the words had brushed something tender in her. Dr. Berne leaned forward. Tell me about the moment Rusk spoke. When he said you were going to drop it. What did you feel first? Leo's throat tightened. I felt like a boy being watched. And what did you do? I tried to defend myself, Lio said. But I also wanted to prove him wrong. Dr. Berne nodded. So his words called out your child. Not the playful child. The one that wants to be seen as good. The one that fears being called bad. Mara's voice was quiet. And he was speaking from the parent. Yes, Dr. Berne said. But there's more. The sentence he spoke had another layer. It wasn't only a warning about the load. It was a hook. Lio felt as if he were standing on the edge of a dark stairwell, peering down. A hook for what? Dr. Berne's eyes held his. A hook for a familiar ending. Mara swallowed. The ending where Lio loses his temper, and then feels ashamed, and Rusk gets to stand there like the calm one. Dr. Berne nodded. That is the payoff. The word payoff sounded too neat for something so ugly. But Lio couldn't deny the truth of it. Rusk had looked pleased. He had gotten something out of it. Mara leaned forward. So, games are like spells. Dr. Berne's eyebrows lifted slightly. In a way. They enchant both players. They make each one act their part. Leo's hands had gone cold. He looked down at them as if they belonged to someone else. And how do we stop? Dr. Berne looked at him for a long moment before answering, as if measuring how much truth he could hand over without it cutting. You stop by seeing which part of you is being summoned, he said. You stop by refusing the hidden message. You stop by staying in the adult. Mara's face tightened. That sounds simple. But it isn't. No, Dr. Berne agreed. Because games are not only with others. We play them with ourselves too. We carry scripts, old stories written early, when we were small and needed to understand the world. The word scripts made Lio think of the puppet shows on the riverbank, where painted figures danced while unseen hands pulled strings. Mara's voice was strained now. You mean, we're not just reacting. We're following something. Dr. Berne nodded. And many people spend their lives acting out the same play, changing the costumes but not the story. Leo's chest felt tight. He imagined the docks. The foreman. The same scene again and again. He imagined other rooms, other faces, other voices. Lovers. Friends. Strangers. The same hooks. The same endings. Dr. Berne rose again and walked to a drawer. He opened it and took out a small object, a card made of stiff paper, with a simple design, 3 masks drawn in ink. One mask looked stern. One looked wide-eyed. One looked calm. He placed the card on the desk between them. "This is not a charm," he said. "But it can remind you. When you feel a conversation tilt, ask yourself, who is speaking in me? Who is speaking in them?" Mara stared at the masks as if they might move. Dr. Berne's voice lowered. "Now I will tell you something that may disturb you. Many games are played with smiling faces. And many games sound like help." Lio felt a chill. "Help?" he repeated. Dr. Berne nodded. "Some people offer rescue so that you will become helpless. Some people offer advice so that you will fail and prove their point. Some people invite closeness so they can punish you for wanting it." Mara's eyes widened. "That's cruel." Dr. Berne's gaze didn't waver. "It is human." The room seemed smaller, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. Lio thought of Mara's brother, who always said, "Let me handle that for you," and then later mocked her for not being capable. He thought of a woman he had once loved who would say, "Tell me everything," and then later throw his secrets like stones in an argument. He looked at Dr. Berne, his voice barely above a breath. "So what's the first game we should learn to see?" Dr. Berne picked up the card with the masks and turned it once, as if considering which face to show first. "There is a common one," he said. "A game that often begins with a simple invitation, a soft complaint, a harmless problem." He set the card down again, and his fingers rested on the calm mask. "It begins with someone saying," Dr. Berne continued, "that something is wrong, and they don't know what to do. They invite you to offer solutions. They invite you to try to fix them." Mara's brow furrowed. "That doesn't sound like a game. That sounds like normal life." Dr. Berne's eyes were steady, almost gentle. "And that is why it works." Lio felt the tension coil in his stomach, like a rope tightening on a winch. Dr. Berne leaned forward, and his voice dropped into a quieter tone, the kind that makes you lean in even if you don't want to. "Because when you offer your help," he said, "they will refuse it. Not once. Not openly. They will refuse it in a way that makes you try harder." Mara's mouth parted slightly, as if she could already see the scene forming like fog in a street lamp's glow. Lio's heartbeat sped up. He suddenly remembered a conversation with Mara herself, late at night, when she had said she felt trapped in her job. He had offered ideas and she had said, "Yes, but," to everyone. He had gotten frustrated. She had gotten hurt. They had both walked away feeling misunderstood. Mara's gaze snapped to him, as if she had remembered it too. Dr. Berne watched them both, quiet and precise, like a lantern held over a dark well. "This game," he said, "has a very particular ending. And once you know it, you will hear the first line like the creak of a door in the night." Mara swallowed. "What's it called?" Dr. Berne's fingers tapped the desk once, soft but final. "I will name it," he said. "And then you will start seeing it everywhere." Lio felt a strange dread and excitement, like standing at the edge of a hidden passage. Dr. Berne looked directly at them. "Why don't you?" "Yes, but." And as the word settled, Lio heard, in his memory, a dozen voices saying the first harmless line, soft complaint, gentle problem, and behind them, like the shadow of a grin, the ending waiting to happen. Chapter 2, The Hall of Helpful Doors. The Institute had a way of following you out. Not with footsteps, not with spies, but with a new kind of hearing. Lio and Mara stepped back into Glass Bridge, and the city sounded different. Every greeting carried a hidden weight. Every sigh seemed shaped, like a coin pressed in a mold. The afternoon air smelled of river mist and warm stone. Market stalls leaned toward the street like gossiping neighbors. A bell chimed from a tower, and for a moment Lio felt almost normal again. Then a voice rose near the fountain. A woman in a pale coat stood with her basket resting on the fountain's rim. Her face was pretty in a tired way, like a candle that had burned too long. She was speaking to a young clerk with ink-stained fingers. The clerk was nodding too eagerly, his whole body bent forward as if he could fix her problem by leaning into it. "I don't know what to do," the woman said, loud enough for passers-by to hear without seeming to mean it. "I've tried everything." The clerk's eyes lit up the way some people's do when they smell a chance to be needed. "You could talk to your landlord," he offered. "Yes, but he never listens," the woman replied, without missing a beat. The clerk blinked and tried again. Then maybe write a letter. A proper one. Yes, but he'll just laugh, she said, and her smile flickered like it enjoyed the refusal. Mara's shoulders went stiff. She didn't look at Lio, but Lio could feel her thinking the same thing he was thinking. The creak of a door in the night. Why don't you? Yes, but. The clerk tried a third suggestion, his voice rising with hope. The woman's answer came back smooth and ready, each time turning the offered help into something useless. It wasn't rude. It wasn't obvious. It was like watching someone pour water into a cup that had a hole you couldn't see. Leo's stomach tightened. He felt a pull to step in, to rescue the clerk from his own helpfulness. But Dr. Berne's voice echoed in his mind, stay in the adult. See which part is being summoned. The woman wasn't really asking for a door out. She was building a hallway of doors for someone else to open, so she could show that all doors were false. They walked on. At the docks, the river had the color of old coins. Ropes lay coiled like sleeping snakes. Men shouted to each other in short bursts that sounded like commands but often meant something else. Mara had a meeting at the ledger office near the warehouse. Lio was supposed to help load crates at the far pier. They split with a promise to meet later at a tea shop. As Lio walked toward the pier, he saw Rusk standing with two other foremen. Rusk's posture was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, always looking for the soft spot in a person. Lio tried to focus on the real work, the weight of the crates, the roughness of the wood under his palms, the smell of tar and salt. The adult part of him liked those things. They were simple. They were true. Then Rusk wandered closer, like a cat strolling near a bowl it pretended not to notice. Careful, Rusk said, his tone mild, almost friendly. Don't strain yourself. It could have been kindness. It could have been nothing. But it landed in Lio like a tap on a bruise. A part of him, small, defensive, eager to prove, rose up like a startled animal. Leo's jaw tightened. He felt the old urge to snap back, to show strength, to make sure no one thought he was weak. The child in him was already climbing onto the stage. He forced himself to breathe. He looked at Russ the way he might look at a rope knot, with calm attention. I've got it, Lio said evenly. Rusk's eyes narrowed a fraction. Sure you do. The hook was in the air now. The familiar script was unrolling. Rusk would needle him, Lio would react, and later Lio would feel shame while Rusk enjoyed being the calm judge. Leo's hands paused on the crate. He felt sweat gather at the back of his neck, not from work but from the effort of not playing. Dr. Berne's card flashed in his mind, 3 masks. Stern. Wide-eyed. Calm. Lio chose the calm one. He lifted the crate without rushing. He set it down where it belonged. He spoke as if Rusk's tone had no hidden barb. If you see something unsafe, tell me directly, Lio said. Otherwise I'll keep moving. Rusk blinked. It wasn't the response he wanted. It didn't give him a handle. For a moment, Rusk's face looked almost empty, as if someone had pulled the curtain down too soon. Then he smirked. Listen to you, Rusk said, loud enough for others to hear. Talking like you're in charge. Lio felt heat flare in his chest. There it was, a new hook. Not about safety now, but about status. About being put in your place. He swallowed hard and kept his voice steady. I'm in charge of my hands, he said. That's all. Rusk's smirk tightened, and for an instant Lio saw something behind it, annoyance, maybe even unease. Rusk turned away as if bored, but his shoulders were stiff. Leo's knees felt weak. He hadn't fought. He hadn't won. He had simply refused the game, and somehow that felt like stepping off a moving cart without falling. Still, the city had a way of finding other paths into you. Later, Lio met Mara at the tea shop on a corner where the street curved like a smile. The shop was dim and warm, with jars of dried leaves lined up like little brown treasure chests. Steam curled from kettles, turning the air soft. Mara sat at a table near the window. Her eyes were bright with a sharp kind of energy. You're going to hate this, she said as soon as Lio sat down. Leo's stomach sank. What happened? Mara leaned forward. In the ledger office, my supervisor asked me how I was doing. I said I was overwhelmed. He smiled and said, I'm always here if you need guidance. Lio nodded slowly. That sounds okay. Mara's mouth twisted. I thought so too. So I told him what I was struggling with. I asked for advice. And do you know what he did? Lio waited. He gave me the kind of advice that sounds helpful but doesn't fit reality, Mara said, her voice quickening. He told me to prioritize better. He told me to stop letting small tasks distract me. Like I'm choosing to drown. I tried to explain, and he kept saying, yes, but you have to be more disciplined. Lio frowned. So he turned it into me being the problem. Mara snapped, then softened her tone, as if embarrassed by her own anger. And the worst part is, I kept trying to make him understand. I kept offering more detail. He kept smiling like he was being patient. I walked out feeling like a child. Leo's fingers tightened around his cup. He invited you to ask, and then used your asking to make you small. Mara nodded sharply. Exactly. It was like he opened a door labeled help and I walked through, and there was a trapdoor on the other side. Lio looked out the window. People moved past with bundles and umbrellas and busy faces. How many trapdoors were hidden in this city? How many times had he stepped through them without seeing? Mara took a breath. Dr. Berne said some games sound like help. I didn't realize how true that was. Lio leaned in. What did you do? Mara's eyes flicked down. I argued. I tried to show him he was wrong. And he just stayed calm. Like he wanted me to look emotional. Like he wanted that. The tea shop's warmth suddenly felt like a haze, like fog that made it hard to see your own hands. Lio thought of Dr. Berne's warning. Some people offer rescue so you become helpless. Some offer advice so you fail. Some invite closeness so they can punish you for wanting it. Mara's voice dropped. Lio, what if we do it too? Leo's throat tightened. What do you mean? Mara looked at him, and for the first time her usual confidence seemed thin. What if I complain because I want you to chase me with solutions, and then I say yes but because I want to prove no one can help me? Because then I don't have to risk actually changing anything? The honesty hit Lio like cold water. He could see it. Not as a cruel thing, but as a frightened thing. A way of staying inside familiar walls. Lio stared at the steam rising from his cup. He thought of nights when he had told Mara his worries, and when she offered ideas he had brushed them aside with an easy shrug. Not because the ideas were bad, but because accepting help meant admitting he needed it. It meant letting someone's hand reach into his life, and that was scary. A silence settled between them. It wasn't empty. It was filled with all the times they had tugged each other into roles without meaning to. Mara's eyes shone. I don't want to keep doing it. Neither do I, Lio said quietly. In that moment, the tea shop felt like a small island in the middle of a stormy river. The world outside kept rushing, full of hooks and smiles and hidden messages, but here they could see the pattern for what it was. Mara picked at the edge of a napkin. Dr. Berne said games have payoffs. If someone keeps refusing help, what's the payoff? Lio thought of the woman at the fountain, her practiced smile. He thought of the way the clerk had leaned in, eager, and the way her refusals had come like smooth stones. To feel right, Lio said slowly. To prove that nothing works. To prove that people can't help. Or to make the other person fail, so they can say, see? Mara nodded, and her face tightened. And what's the payoff for the helper? Lio felt a sting in his chest, like a truth he didn't want to touch. To feel needed, he said. To feel smart. To feel like, if I fix you, then I matter. Mara's eyes met his, and there was no blame there, only recognition. They sat with that for a long moment. Outside, the light shifted. A cloud passed over the sun, and the street dimmed. Mara suddenly straightened. There's something else Dr. Berne mentioned, she said, her voice cautious. Scripts. Lio nodded. Old stories. Mara's gaze drifted to the window again. When my supervisor talked to me like I was careless, I felt like I was back in my family kitchen. Like I was a girl spilling flour. Like I was always almost good enough. Leo's hands went cold. He could feel his own kitchen too, even though he hadn't thought of it in years. The smell of boiled cabbage. The scrape of a chair. A voice saying, not angrily, but with tired certainty. You always make things harder. He swallowed. So these games, they fit the script. Mara's voice was barely a whisper. And maybe we look for the ones that match, without knowing we're looking. The tea shop door opened, letting in a rush of cold air and a gust of street noise. A man stepped in wearing a coat too fine for the docks. His hair was slicked back, and his smile was bright in a way that didn't reach his eyes. He scanned the room and spotted Mara. Mara, he said, as if he owned her name. There you are. Mara's body stiffened so suddenly Lio saw it like a reflex. The man approached their table with the confidence of someone entering a room he expected to obey him. I've been trying to reach you, he said, still smiling. We need to talk. Mara forced a polite expression onto her face, but her hands trembled slightly as they moved her cup. Lio didn't know the man, but he recognized something in the air around him. A familiar tilt. A stage being assembled. The man's gaze flicked to Lio briefly, dismissive, then returned to Mara. I'm worried about you, he said, soft and syrupy. You've been pulling away. It's not like you. Mara's throat bobbed. I've been busy. The man sighed, the sound practiced, like a sad violin note meant to draw attention. I'm only trying to help. Lio felt the word help land like a stone. Mara's eyes darted to Lio for a fraction of a second, and in that glance he saw it, fear, irritation, and something else, an old pull, like a string around her wrist. Dr. Berne's warning echoed again, sharper now. Some games invite closeness so they can punish you for wanting it. The man leaned closer, his voice dropping as if sharing a tender secret. Come outside with me, he said. Just for a moment. We'll sort this out. Mara's lips parted, and Lio could almost see the child mask rising in her, wanting approval, fearing conflict, ready to step into a familiar role. Leo's heart pounded. He didn't know the rules of this game yet. But he could feel its shape, and he could sense the ending waiting like a dark alley behind a smiling street. The man's smile widened. Well? He said softly, as if he had all the time in the world. Mara's chair creaked as she began to stand. Chapter 3. The Smile That Holds a Knife. Mara's chair rose a finger's width from the floor, and the room seemed to hold its breath with her. The man in the fine coat stood beside the table as if he belonged there, as if his presence had always been part of the tea shop's furniture. His smile stayed bright, but it was the kind of brightness that made Lio think of polished glass, smooth, clear, and sharp enough to cut. Lio watched Mara's face. She wasn't smiling back. Her mouth made a shape that was almost polite, almost obedient. Her eyes, though, were elsewhere. Somewhere far behind her, a door was opening onto an old hallway. Just a moment, the man repeated, his voice gentle like a hand on the back of a neck. We'll talk where it's quieter. Mara's fingers hovered near the edge of the table as if she needed it to keep from drifting away. Lio could see her making a choice, but it didn't look like a choice made in the present. It looked like a choice made long ago, one she had practiced until it was automatic. Leo's heart beat hard enough that he felt it in his throat. Dr. Berne's card flashed in his mind, stern, wide-eyed calm. Stay in the adult. Refuse the hidden message. But the hidden message wasn't aimed at him. It was aimed at Mara. And yet he could feel the game reaching for him too, like an extra hand groping for a second player. If Lio interfered, the man could turn it into a fight. If Lio stayed silent, Mara might be pulled into something she would regret and then blame herself for. The tea shop suddenly felt like a small stage, and every teacup and jar of leaves had become an audience. Mara finally spoke, her voice thin. I don't want to go outside. The man's smile didn't change, but the air around it cooled. Don't want to? He echoed softly, as if tasting the words. That's not like you. It sounded like concern, but it struck like a pin. Not like you. A small sentence that tried to reshape her into what he preferred. Mara swallowed. I'm tired. I came here to sit. The man let out a sigh that was almost theatrical. His shoulders drooped, his face turned a fraction sadder, and suddenly he looked like a wounded hero from a street play. I worry, he said. You know I do. When you shut me out, it hurts. Mara's eyes flickered. The hook dangled plainly now. If she stayed firm, she would be the one causing pain. If she gave in, she would be the one relieving it. Lio felt anger rise, hot and bright. His child part wanted to stand up, to snap, to protect Mara the way you protect someone smaller from a bully. But he could almost hear Dr. Berne warning him, don't be summoned into the wrong role. Don't let your response become part of their pattern. He chose the calm mask. Lio leaned slightly forward and addressed the man with a steady tone, as if they were discussing something ordinary. Mara said no, he said. So she's staying. The man's gaze slid to Lio, and for the first time the smile faltered. Not much. Just enough to show a flash of irritation, like a crack in a painted mask. And you are? The man asked. The question sounded polite, but its underside was sharp. Who gave you the right? Her friend, Lio said. The man's smile returned, but now it looked more like a tool. Ah, he said lightly. A friend. He turned back to Mara. So this is what's happening, he said, voice still gentle. You're letting other people decide for you. Mara's cheeks flushed. The sentence was crafted like a net. If she agreed, she admitted weakness. If she disagreed, she might prove his point by arguing. Either way, he guided her into a role, the confused girl, the stubborn girl, the ungrateful girl. Lio saw it as a kind of dark magic, not spells and smoke, but language that tugged at old strings. Mara straightened, just a little. Her hands stopped trembling. I decided, she said quietly. I'm staying. For a heartbeat, the man's eyes hardened. Then he sighed again, softer, as if he was the one carrying the burden of patience. I can't believe you're doing this, he murmured. After everything I've done for you. The words fell into the space between them with a heavy thud. After everything. A ledger. A debt. A claim. Lio felt Mara's breath catch. He didn't know the story between them, but he knew this move. It was a way of turning kindness into chains. The man leaned closer, lowering his voice, as if the tea shop didn't deserve to hear. You owe me the courtesy of a private conversation. Mara's eyes went glassy for a second. Lio could almost see her slipping. Not because she wanted to. Because the script was older than her adult self. Because some part of her had learned that when someone says you owe me, you pay, even if it empties you. Lio spoke again, careful. If you want to talk, you can talk here, he said. Or you can come another time when Mara wants to meet you. The man turned his head slowly. His smile stayed in place, but his eyes measured Lio like a man judging the strength of a rope. You're very involved, he said. Lio shrugged slightly, keeping his voice plain. I'm present. The man's lips pressed together. Then his face brightened again, like a lamp turned up. Mara, he said, ignoring Lio now. I came because I care. I'm trying to help you. But if you insist on pushing me away, I suppose you'll have to learn the hard way. The phrase learn the hard way slithered under the table and wrapped around Mara's ankles. It hinted at punishment without naming it. It offered fear as a reason to obey. Mara's mouth opened, and for a moment Lio thought she would plead, or apologize, or explain. Any of those would be stepping onto the stage. Instead, Mara did something small and startling. She took a slow sip of her tea. The gesture was simple, but it changed the whole room. It was like she had anchored herself to the present, warm cup, bitter leaves steam against her face. Not the old kitchen. Not the old hallway. Here. When she lowered the cup, her voice was steadier. If you want to help, she said, stop threatening me. The man froze. His smile hung for a moment, unsupported, like a mask held up without a face behind it. A few people at nearby tables glanced over and then quickly looked away, pretending not to listen while listening harder. The man's nostrils flared. He chuckled softly, as if Mara had made a cute mistake. I'm not threatening you, he said. You're being dramatic. There it was, the twist. He offered harm, then denied it, then blamed her for seeing it. Lio felt cold move through him like river water. Mara's eyes narrowed. I'm being clear, she said. The man's gaze darted around the room, taking in the watching faces, the cups, the staff behind the counter. His control depended on privacy, on keeping the game's rules hidden. Here, under the hum of the tea shop, his moves looked uglier. He straightened his coat with careful fingers. Fine, he said brightly, as if granting mercy. We'll talk later when you're calmer. He leaned in one last time, voice soft enough to seem intimate. Don't let people turn you against me. Then he walked out, the bell above the door chiming as if nothing had happened at all. Mara didn't move for several breaths. Lio watched her hands. They were steady now, but her knuckles were pale. Who was that? Lio asked gently. Mara stared into her cup as if it held an answer. His name is Kellen, she said. He used to be close to me. Lio didn't push for details. He could feel how tight her chest was, how close she was to either breaking down or shutting down. He just sat there, present, as he'd said. Mara spoke again, voice low. He always does that, she whispered. He comes in like he's worried. Like he's kind. And then suddenly I'm defending myself, and somehow I'm the one who looks cruel. Lio nodded slowly. That's a game. Mara's eyes flicked up. Which one? Lio hesitated. Dr. Berne had only named one so far. But the pattern here felt different from why don't you? Yes, but. This wasn't about refusing solutions. This was about switching roles, about blame, about guilt used like a leash. I don't know the name, Lio admitted. But I felt the pull. He wanted you to become the bad one. Mara's jaw tightened. And he wanted to be the good one. The wounded one. Lio looked at the steam rising from both their cups, twisting like pale ghosts. Dr. Berne said games have hidden messages, he murmured. What was his hidden message? Mara's lips trembled. That I'm ungrateful. That I'm wrong for wanting space. That if I don't do what he wants, I'm cruel. Lio felt a surge of anger again, but he kept it contained, held in the adult. And your hidden message back? He asked softly. Mara's eyes went distant. Please don't leave me, she whispered, almost like she hadn't meant to say it aloud. Even if I hate you right now, don't leave. The words sat between them like a small, naked thing. Leo's chest tightened. He could see the trap clearly now. The game wasn't just in Kellen. It was in the old fear Mara carried, the fear that saying no would mean abandonment. Kellen was pressing on that fear like a bruise. Mara swallowed hard and wiped at her cheek with the back of her hand, angry at herself for the tear. I hate that I still react, she said. Lio shook his head slightly. You didn't react the way you used to, he said. You stayed here. You drank your tea. You named the threat. That's different. Mara gave a shaky laugh. It felt like holding a door closed while someone shoved it from the other side. Lio nodded. And you held it. They sat quietly. The tea shop returned to its normal murmur, but the moment had left a mark in the air. Lio could feel it in his own body too, a kind of alertness, like his nerves had learned a new shape. When they left the tea shop, the street outside was darker. The lamps were lit, their light pooled on wet stones. The river wind carried the smell of fish and smoke. Mara pulled her coat tighter. I should go home, she said. Lio glanced at her. Do you want company? Mara hesitated, then nodded. Yes. They walked along the river path where iron railings kept you from slipping into the water. Across the river, warehouses loomed like sleeping beasts. Halfway to Mara's building, she stopped suddenly. What? Lio asked. Mara stared ahead. At the corner under a lamp, a figure leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets, posture casual. The light caught the fine fabric of his coat. Kellen. He lifted his head as they approached, his smile already in place, as if he had been waiting for this exact scene. Mara, he said softly. I thought you might need me. Mara's breath hitched. Lio felt the familiar tilt again, the stage being rebuilt in a new place, with fewer witnesses. Kellen's eyes slid to Lio, and the smile sharpened. Still here? He asked, voice light. Mara's fingers curled into a fist inside her sleeve. Lio felt the cold edge of something in the air, not a knife of metal but a knife made of choices. Whatever game this was, it was not finished. It was moving into a darker part of the city, where the rules could be twisted more easily. Kellen pushed off the wall and took a step toward them, his voice warm as a blanket. Come, he said. Let's talk like we used to. Just you and me. And Mara, caught between the old fear and the new clarity, stood very still while the river wind hissed along the stones, as if whispering the next line of the script. Chapter 4, The Triangle in the Lamplight. Kellen's shadow stretched long on the wet stones, reaching toward Mara like a hand that didn't need to touch to pull. The lamp above them hummed softly, its glass skin beaded with mist. The river behind the railing moved with a dark, steady patience, as if it had watched 1,000 conversations like this and never once intervened. Come, Kellen said again, voice low and warm. Just you and me. Mara's breath came shallow. Lio could hear it. He could also hear the silence between her inhale and exhale, where an old part of her was deciding whether to obey. Lio stood slightly behind her, not blocking her, not pushing her, just present enough to be real. He remembered Dr. Berne's words, games enchant both players. They make each one act their part. And now the game was offering roles like masks held out on open palms. Kellen wanted Mara alone. That was clear. Alone meant control. Alone meant the game could unfold without anyone naming it. Mara's voice was small but sharp. Why are you here? Kellen's smile softened into something almost tender. Because I care, he said. Because I know you. Because when you get upset, you run, and you make choices you regret. The sentence was a velvet rope. It sounded protective, but it tightened around her wrists. It painted her as childish, impulsive, unsafe with her own life. Mara's jaw clenched. I'm not upset, she said, though her cheeks were flushed and her eyes were bright. Kellen's gaze flicked to Lio again, and a faint annoyance flashed. You're not alone, he observed. I can see that. Lio felt the pull now. Kellen was inviting him into a part two. The jealous stranger. The rude intruder. The one who can be blamed for everything. Kellen took a half step closer to Mara, as if Lio were air. He doesn't know you like I do, he murmured. He's filling your head. Mara's shoulders rose. The words landed in her chest like a stone. Filling your head. It suggested she wasn't thinking. It suggested she was being controlled. It stole her dignity, and offered it back only if she returned to Kellen's side. Lio saw Mara wobble, just a little. Not in her feet, but in her center. The old fear stirred, If she chose herself, she would be alone. If she chose Kellen, she would be safe, at least in the familiar way. Lio took a slow breath. Calm mask. Adult voice. Don't rescue her like a hero. Don't attack Kellen like a rival. Stay in reality. Mara, Lio said, keeping his tone simple. What do you want right now? The question cut through Kellen's fog like a blade of clean air. It wasn't a command. It wasn't a warning. It was a doorway that belonged to her. Mara blinked. Her eyes flicked to Leo's face. She seemed to steady, as if the question had reminded her she had hands and feet and the right to stand where she stood. I want to go home, she said. Kellen's smile froze and then reshaped into something pained. Home, he echoed softly, as if she'd said something cruel. And you can't even give me a minute. Mara swallowed. The gilt hook dangled again, glittering in the lamplight. Lio watched Kellen carefully. Kellen's performance was smooth, but not endless. Each time Mara refused, Kellen shifted his position, like a man moving around a lock, trying different picks. Kellen's voice dropped. Fine, he said. Then I'll walk you. Mara stiffened. No. Kellen's eyes narrowed. Why not? Because you don't respect no. Because you turn my words into weapons. Because you make me feel like a child. Mara didn't say any of that. If she did, she would step into a debate, and debates were Kellen's favorite playground. Instead she said, because I said no. For a heartbeat, something dark flickered across Kellen's face. Then he laughed softly. You're doing that thing again, he said. The stubborn act. It's cute. Cute. The word was a pat on the head. A collar with ribbons. Mara's lips pressed together so tightly they paled. Kellen turned his head toward Lio, smile still gentle, as if he was being reasonable. You see? He said. She gets like this. It's not good for her. I'm trying to calm her down. There. The triangle appeared as clearly as if it had been drawn in chalk on the stones beneath their feet. Kellen tried to place himself as the calm helper, Mara as the unreasonable child, and Lio as the witness who would either agree or be made into the villain. Lio felt it like a shape in the air, 3 points, 3 rolls, a small machine that ran on blame and pity. Dr. Berne had spoken of parts within a person, but he had also hinted at something else, the way people slid into roles with each other, trading them like cards. Someone becomes the rescuer. Someone becomes the victim. Someone becomes the one who punishes. And the game keeps turning until everyone has tasted the familiar feeling they came for. Lio kept his voice even. Mara said she wants to go home, he repeated. That's clear. Kellen's eyes sharpened. You're very protective, he said. Is that your thing? Saving women? The hook was aimed at Leo's pride. To make him defensive. To make him angry. To make him react and prove Kellen right. Lio felt heat rise, but he didn't let it decide for him. He reminded himself, adult. Reality. Present moment. Don't chase Kellen's shadow. I'm not saving her, Lio said. I'm listening to her. For a moment, Kellen looked surprised. Then his face smoothed again, almost amused. Listening, he repeated, like the word was strange. Mara shifted her weight, as if readying herself to walk. Her eyes stayed on Kellen, wary. Kellen sighed, and the sigh carried disappointment like a scent. Mara, he said softly, I'm worried you're making a mistake. Mara's voice trembled but held. Then be worried. Kellen's smile slipped again, and this time it didn't return fully. His gaze wandered to the dark river, then back to her face. You're really going to do this? He murmured. After everything. The ledger again. The debt again. The invisible chain he kept tugging. Mara's hand lifted, then stopped. For a moment Lio thought she might reach for Kellen, or apologize, or soften. Instead she reached for her own coat collar and pulled it tighter, grounding herself in the feel of fabric, the cold air against her skin. I don't owe you my time, she said. The sentence fell like a stone dropped into water. Simple, heavy, rippling outward. Kellen stared at her. The mask of the kind, concerned man trembled. Then his face brightened suddenly, too quickly, like a lamp turned on to hide the darkness in the room. Of course, he said lightly. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have pressured you. Mara's eyes narrowed. Leo's stomach tightened. He could feel it. This was not an end. This was a pivot. Kellen stepped back, hands raised slightly as if surrendering. Go home, he said, gentle. Rest. I'll give you space. The words sounded like kindness, but his eyes stayed locked on Mara's face as if searching for a crack. Mara didn't relax. She didn't thank him. She simply nodded once, small and stiff, then turned and started walking. Lio walked beside her. They passed Kellen, and as they did, Kellen spoke in a voice meant to slide under Mara's skin and stay there. "You'll miss me," he said softly. "They always do." Mara's shoulders jerked as if the words had touched her. She kept walking. Lio kept walking. Neither turned back. They didn't speak until they reached Mara's building, a narrow stack of rooms with a stairwell that smelled of damp wood and cabbage. The hallway light flickered, casting the walls in a sickly yellow. Mara stopped at her door. Her key trembled in her fingers. Lio washed her hands. "Do you want me to stay until you're inside?" he asked. Mara nodded without looking up. "Yes." She unlocked the door and stepped in. She turned and met Leo's eyes, and for the first time since the tea shop her face cracked open with raw feeling. "I hate him," she whispered. "And I hate that I still feel pulled." Leo's chest tightened. "That pull is the script," he said quietly. "Not a sign you want him." Mara's mouth twisted. "It feels like if I don't give him something, he'll take it anyway." Lio didn't ask what she meant. He could hear the fear beneath it, fear of anger, fear of retaliation, fear of being made the bad one. Fear that no was not a complete sentence in Kellen's world. Mara swallowed hard. "When he said he'd give me space, my body wanted to relax. Like I should reward him for basic decency." Lio nodded. "That's part of it. He shifts. He offers relief after pressure. Relief feels like love." Mara's eyes widened slightly, as if the words had named something she'd never dared to name. She leaned her forehead against the doorframe. "What is this game?" she asked. "What is he doing?" Lio thought of Dr. Berne's office, the map of circles and lines. He thought of the waiting room with the heron, still and watchful. He thought of the warning, "Many games sound like help." "This feels like a trap that uses kindness as bait," Lio said slowly. "It feels like he wants you to doubt yourself. So you'll come back for his approval." Mara's voice broke. "And it works." Lio stepped closer but didn't touch her, letting her have space. "It worked before," he corrected gently. "Tonight you saw it." Mara's breathing steadied a little. She looked up. "When you asked what I wanted," she said, "it felt like someone turned on a light." Lio nodded. "That's the adult voice." Mara's gaze grew sharper. "And when he spoke to you," she said, "he tried to turn you into something." Lio exhaled. "Yes. He tried to make me the attacker. Or the rescuer. Anything but a witness to what was happening." Mara pushed herself upright. "So the triangle," she murmured, almost to herself. "He tried to put us in a triangle." Leo's eyes narrowed slightly. "A triangle that keeps spinning rolls until someone ends up feeling what they're used to feeling." Mara stared at him. "What do you think he's used to feeling?" Lio pictured Kellen's face when Mara named the threat. The crack. The flash of anger. The quick recovery. The need to win back control. "Power," Lio said. "And when he can't get it, resentment." Mara shivered. Lio hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Mara, we should go back to Dr. Berne." Mara nodded slowly. "Yes." Lio added. "And we should tell him about Kellen. Because this isn't just awkward conversation. It feels dangerous." Mara's eyes lowered. "He's not going to hit me," she said, as if convincing herself. "He's not like that." Lio chose his words with care. "Maybe not with his hands," he said softly. "But he's already hitting places inside you that bruise." Mara's throat worked. She nodded once more, sharper this time, as if deciding. "I'll go tomorrow," she said. "I'll tell Dr. Berne everything." Lio started to step back into the hallway. Mara's hand rose, stopping him. "Lio," she said, voice quiet. "Thank you." Lio nodded once, then turned to leave. As he descended the stairs, the hallway light flickered again, and for a moment the shadows on the wall looked like moving shapes, like masks sliding from face to face. Outside, the river wind had grown colder. Lio pulled his coat tight and walked toward his own room across town. The streets were quieter now, and every footstep sounded too loud on the stones. When he reached the corner near the fountain, he slowed. Someone stood under the lamp there too. Not Kellen. A woman in a dark cloak, hood pushed back, her hair pinned neatly. Her eyes were bright and steady in a way that reminded Lio of Dr. Berne's assistant. She looked like someone who watched patterns for a living. She held a folded paper in one hand. "Lio," she said, as if she had expected him. Lio stopped, heart tightening. Who are you? The woman stepped closer, and the lamp light revealed the Institute's small pin on her collar. I work with Dr. Berne, she said. He asked me to find you. Leo's mouth went dry. Why? The woman's gaze flicked briefly down the street, then back to him. Because you're seeing the games, she said. And when people start seeing them, the games change. Lio felt a chill slide up his spine. What do you mean? The woman held out the folded paper. Dr. Berne wants you at the Institute, she said. Tonight. Not tomorrow. Lio stared at the paper as if it might bite. Is something wrong? He asked. The woman's expression stayed calm, but her voice lowered. Someone came to the Institute after you left, she said. Someone asking questions about you and Mara. Leo's pulse quickened. Who? The woman's eyes held his, steady as a lock clicking into place. A man in a fine coat, she said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Chapter 5, The Institute After Dark. The Institute looked different at night. By day, it was a polite building with clean windows and a brass plate that asked nothing of you. By night, its stones seemed darker, as if it drank the street light instead of reflecting it. The lamps outside threw pale circles on the steps, and beyond those circles the city felt thick with shadow, the kind of shadow that listens. Lio followed Dr. Berne's assistant. Her name, she finally said, was Sarah, through the quiet streets. Her stride was calm but quick, and she kept glancing at reflections, shop windows, puddles, the black sheen of the river. Lio tried to do the same, not because he expected to see Kellen behind them, but because the warning had sharpened his senses. When they reached the Institute, Sarah didn't use the front door. She guided him down a side alley into a smaller entrance half hidden by ivy. A key flashed in her hand, and the lock turned without complaint. Inside, the corridor was dim, lit by lamps turned low. The carpet swallowed sound. The familiar hush felt different now, less comforting, more like the silence of a theater right before the curtain rises. Sarah led him to Dr. Berne's office. The door was slightly ajar. Light spilled out in a warm rectangle. Leo's stomach tightened as if he were about to step into a room where the air had changed pressure. Dr. Berne stood by the wall diagram, sleeves rolled up, his face serious in a quiet way. The assistant from earlier sat at the desk, but she wasn't smiling tonight. Two other people sat in chairs against the wall, strangers to Lio, both with the still posture of those who listened for danger in ordinary words. Dr. Berne turned as Lio entered. His eyes met Leo's, and there was no softness in them now, only focus. Come in, he said. Close the door. Lio did. The click of the latch sounded too loud. Dr. Berne gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Lio sat. His hands wanted to fidget, so he pressed them flat on his thighs. Dr. Berne didn't waste time. Kellen came here, he said. Leo's mouth went dry. What did he say? Dr. Berne walked back to his chair, but he didn't sit at once. He stood behind it as if standing gave him a better angle on the truth. He asked about Mara, Dr. Berne said. He asked what we were discussing. He framed it as concern. He said she was confused and vulnerable. He implied you were encouraging her confusion. Lio felt a flare of anger. He's lying. Yes, Dr. Berne said simply. He sat, folding his hands. And he did it smoothly, which means he has practice. Leo's chest tightened. Why did he come? To scare you? To gather information, Dr. Berne replied. To place himself between Mara and clarity. To keep the games running. Sarah stepped closer to the desk, resting her fingertips lightly on its edge as if grounding herself. He also tried to charm the receptionist, she said. He asked personal questions. He offered compliments. He looked for an opening. Lio felt the room sharpen around him. Even the books on the shelf seemed to lean in, their spines like watching eyes. Dr. Berne nodded slightly at Sarah, then returned his gaze to Lio. When you start refusing games, he said, the other player often escalates. If they can't get the old payoff, they look for a new one. Lio swallowed. What's the new payoff? Dr. Berne's expression remained calm, but his words landed heavy. Making you doubt yourself. Making you look unstable. Making Mara frightened of her own strength. Making the Institute seem like an enemy. Leo's hands went cold. Can he do that? Dr. Berne's eyes didn't blink. He can try. And trying is often enough to pull people back into old scripts. One of the strangers by the wall spoke for the first time, voice low. People like him are skilled at turning any refusal into evidence, she said. If you set a boundary, you're cruel. If you stay calm, you're cold. If you speak up, you're dramatic. Lio turned his head slightly to look at her. She was middle-aged, with hair pulled back and eyes that had seen too many polite lies. Dr. Berne nodded. This is Ellen, he said. She listens for patterns in conflict. And this is Jory. He gestured to the other stranger, a man with a quiet face and hands that looked used to careful work. He teaches people how to stay steady under social pressure. Lio blinked. The institute suddenly felt less like a private office and more like a place with hidden corridors and watchful rooms. A place that prepared for storms no one else believed in. Lio leaned forward. What do we do? Dr. Berne didn't answer immediately. He picked up a pencil from the desk and held it between his fingers as if it were a small wand. We begin by naming the structure, he said. Kellen is not simply upset. He is playing for position. Dr. Berne tapped the pencil once on the desk. He wants Mara in a certain role. Mara's face flashed in Leo's mind under the lamplight, the tremble in her hand on the key, the way relief had tried to pull her toward gratitude when Kellen pretended to back off. What role? Lio asked. Dr. Berne's voice was quiet. The one who doubts herself. The one who seeks permission. The one who returns to him for a sense of safety. Lio nodded slowly. Dr. Berne continued. And he wants you in a role too. The villain, Lio said. Or the fool. Dr. Berne's eyes held his. Or the rescuer. Leo's throat tightened. He had felt that pull, that bright, urgent need to protect, to fight, to prove. It would have been easy to slip into it, and then be blamed when the story turned ugly. Ellen spoke again. Rescuers are useful, she said. They make the victim look helpless. They make the persecutor look reasonable. The triangle tightens. Triangle. The word hung in the air like a drawn shape. Dr. Berne stood and went to the wall diagram. He didn't point to the three inner masks this time. He pointed to another drawing beside it, almost like a simplified sketch, three figures, each facing the next, their hands reaching out in different ways. This is a common dance, Dr. Berne said. One person claims injury. One person offers rescue. One person carries blame. The roles can swap quickly. The dance is not always obvious. But it is sticky. It pulls. Lio stared at the sketch. It looked childish, almost silly, and yet it matched the cold reality he'd felt in the street. Dr. Berne turned back. Kellen came to me because he sensed the dance slipping out of his control, he said. When Mara stood firm, he lost the ending he expected. So he is seeking a new ending. Sarah's voice was tense. He asked if Mara was being influenced. Leo's jaw clenched. He's trying to paint her as weak. Dr. Berne nodded. And to paint you as dangerous. Lio felt a heavy pressure in his chest. Can we warn Mara? Yes, Dr. Berne said. But we must do it cleanly. Ellen's eyes narrowed. No dramatic speeches. No panic. Panic feeds the story that she's in danger and needs a rescuer. Lio swallowed. The adult part of him understood. The child part wanted to run to Mara's door and tell her everything, to wrap her in safety. But safety in this world had to be built without feeding the game. Dr. Berne moved back to his desk and opened a drawer. He took out a thin file folder and placed it on the table, then slid it toward Lio. Lio hesitated before touching it. What is this? Dr. Berne's voice remained even. Descriptions of games, he said. Not all, but some. Names, typical openings, typical endings, the payoffs. If you learn them, you can recognize the first line before it becomes a trap. Lio opened the folder carefully. Inside were pages filled with simple notes, not academic, but sharp and practical. Each page had a title written like a warning sign. One caught his eye immediately. Now I've got you, you son of a... The title itself felt like a clenched fist. Another. See what you made me do. Another. If it weren't for you. Each name sounded like something people might say in the middle of a fight, the kind of sentence that turns a moment into a lifelong pattern. Lio looked up, unsettled. These are real. Dr. Berne nodded. They are as real as gravity. Lio flipped another page. Why don't you? Yes, but was there too, familiar now, like a creature he could recognize by its tracks. He read quickly, absorbing the structure. The opening complaint. The offered solutions. The refusals. The helper's frustration. The final feeling, helplessness, irritation, superiority, despair, each one a familiar taste. Leo's eyes drifted back to the other titles. Which one is Kellen using? He asked. Dr. Berne didn't answer with a name at once. He asked, what did Kellen do when Mara refused to go outside? Lio pictured it vividly, the sigh, the hurt voice, the talk of caring, the hint of punishment, the sudden apology that didn't feel real. He tried to make her feel guilty, Lio said. Then he tried to make her look dramatic. Then he tried to make me look like a rescuer. Then he pretended to back off so she'd feel relief and maybe reward him. Dr. Berne's eyes stayed on Lio's face as if watching his mind work. And when Mara named the threat, Lio felt a chill. He denied it and said she was dramatic. Dr. Berne nodded. This is close to a pattern where someone provokes a reaction and then uses the reaction to claim innocence, he said. It is also close to a pattern where someone sets a trap so they can punish you for stepping into it. Ellen leaned forward slightly. He wants an excuse, she said. An excuse to be angry while appearing justified. Lio's stomach tightened. So he's trying to make a scene. Dr. Berne's expression hardened a fraction. Yes. And he came here to prepare the audience. The word audience made the room feel colder. Lio pictured Kellen talking to neighbors, to coworkers, to anyone who would listen. She's confused. She's being influenced. I'm worried. All said with that gentle smile. The city loved gentle smiles. It trusted them. Lio's throat went dry. What do we do tomorrow? Dr. Berne held up a hand, not to silence Lio, but to slow him. First, he said, you and Mara must protect your adult selves. That means no secret meetings with Kellen. No arguing in circles. No trying to prove your goodness to him. Lio nodded. Dr. Berne continued. Second, you must expect invitations into roles. The rescuer role will be offered to you again. The victim role will be offered to Mara. And Kellen may try to place himself as the wounded hero. Sarah's eyes flicked to Lio. He'll come with gifts, she said. Or apologies. Or emergencies. Lio remembered the woman at the fountain and the hallway of useless doors. He remembered his own urge to fix. His own itch to be the one who solved it. Dr. Berne looked at Lio as if he could read that memory. Your strength, he said, will be to offer reality, not rescue. Ask Mara what she wants. Ask what is true. Offer choices. Do not offer yourself as a shield she cannot learn to carry. Lio's chest tightened, but he nodded. He understood. He didn't like it, because the child part of him still wanted to be the hero. But heroism was another costume in a game. Dr. Berne slid another paper across the desk. It was smaller, handwritten. This is a simple practice, he said. When someone speaks to you, listen for two messages. The surface message and the hidden message. Answer only the surface message if it is reasonable. Or ask for clarity. Do not answer the hidden one. Lio read the paper. The words were plain, but they felt like a tool you could carry. Ellen added. And when you feel your body heat up, your chest tightening, your face burning, that is often the hook catching. Pause. Name the feeling silently. Choose. Lio swallowed. What if he escalates anyway? Dr. Berne's eyes were steady. Then you will see him more clearly. The room went quiet. Outside, somewhere in the city, a cartwheel creaked. A dog barked once and then fell silent. Lio realized something then. The Institute wasn't just teaching people to talk differently. It was teaching them to see. And seeing was dangerous because it changed the whole board. Dr. Berne spoke again, softer. There is another thing you should know, he said. Lio's stomach tightened. What? Dr. Berne tapped the folder. Many people do not play one game, he said. They play a set. They stack them. And beneath the games, there is often a story they have decided about themselves and about others. Script, Lio thought. Dr. Berne's gaze sharpened. Kellen's story may be that he is the one who knows best, he said. The one who rescues, who guides, who suffers. If Mara leaves that story, he loses not only control of her. He loses a part of his identity. Lio felt cold spread in his chest. So he'll fight. Dr. Berne nodded. Not necessarily with fists, but with words. With rumors. With pressure. With charm. Sarah spoke quietly. He asked for your full name, she said to Lio. He asked where you work? Leo's hands clenched. Did you tell him? No, Sarah said. But he doesn't need us for that. The city is small. People talk. Lio stared at the folder on his lap. The pages felt heavier now, like a bag of stones. Dr. Berne leaned forward slightly. Lio, he said, you asked earlier why people would collect unpleasant feelings. This is part of why. A game lets someone stay inside their script. Even if it hurts, it feels like home. Leo's mind flashed to Mara's fear of being alone, to his own fear of being seen as careless, useless, not good enough. Those fears were not new. There were old rooms inside them, rooms they kept returning to because they knew the furniture. Dr. Berne's voice was calm, but it carried urgency underneath. Tomorrow, he said, Mara must come here. Not only to talk, to practice. To strengthen her adult voice while it is calm, so it can speak when she is pulled. Lio nodded. I'll bring her. Dr. Berne looked at him for a long moment. Not as a rescuer, he said gently. Leo's throat tightened. As a friend. Dr. Berne nodded once. As a friend. Sarah stepped forward and opened the office door. We should leave soon, she said quietly. The streets are less safe when people with fine coats start asking questions. Lio rose, folder tucked under his arm. He felt both heavier and steadier, like someone who had been handed a lantern and now had to walk into fog. As they moved through the corridor, Lio glanced at the waiting room. The heron painting was still there, perfectly still, watching the pond. In the dim light, the heron's eyes seemed almost alive, alert rather than peaceful. At the side entrance, Sarah unlocked the door and stepped out first, scanning the alley. Lio followed. The air outside was colder than before. The alley smelled of wet stone and old ivy. The street beyond was quiet, too quiet, as if the city itself were holding its breath. They walked quickly, staying in the light when they could, moving from lamp to lamp like crossing small islands. Near a corner, Sarah slowed. Her hand lifted slightly, signaling Lio to stop. What? Lio whispered. Sarah didn't answer at once. She tilted her head toward a shop window across the street, where the glass reflected the alley behind them. In the reflection, someone stood in the shadows near the institute's side gate. A figure in a fine coat. Not moving. Just watching. Leo's pulse slammed hard. He turned his head slightly, not enough to look directly, but enough to confirm the shape with his own eyes. The figure didn't step forward. Didn't speak. The distance was deliberate. It wasn't a confrontation. It was a message. I see you. Sarah's voice was barely a breath. Keep walking, she murmured. Lio forced his legs to move. His skin prickled. He could feel the watcher's gaze like a hand on the back of his neck. They turned the corner, and the figure vanished from view, swallowed by the city's dark folds. Leo's mind raced. Kellen had come to the institute. Kellen had asked questions. And now someone, maybe Kellen, maybe someone he sent, was watching the institute at night like a hunter watching a den. Sarah kept walking, her pace steady, her face unreadable. Lio clutched the folder tighter, as if paper could protect him. In his mind, he heard Kellen's voice from the street, "You'll miss me. They always do." But beneath that, he heard something else now, something that wasn't spoken aloud but seemed to hum through the city's stones. A new line in the script was being written, and Lio couldn't yet read it. Not until he saw what waited for Mara when she came to the institute in the morning. Chapter 6: The Door That Opens Inward. Morning in Glassbridge arrived like a careful knock. Lights slid between buildings and pooled in the narrow streets. The river mist thinned into pale ribbons that clung to iron railings and the edges of rooftops. People emerged with baskets and bundles, faces arranged into the day's polite expressions. The city's calm returned, practiced and convincing, like a curtain drawn over a stage that had been messy the night before. Lio walked to Mara's building with the folder under his arm, his steps steady on purpose. He had slept poorly. Not from nightmares exactly, but from a mind that kept replaying Kellen's smile and the silent watcher near the institute gate. When Mara opened her door, she looked as if she'd been awake for hours. Her hair was pinned back tightly. Her eyes were clear but tired, like someone who had scrubbed sleep away with determination. "Did he come back?" Lio asked. Mara shook her head, but her shoulders were tense. "No," she said. "But I kept hearing him anyway." Lio nodded. "We'll go to Dr. Berne." Mara glanced down the stairwell as if expecting to see a fine coat at the bottom. "Okay," she whispered, and then, as if the word needed muscle, she said again, louder. "Okay." They walked together along the river path. The water moved in quiet sheets, catching the light like dull metal. Mara kept her gaze forward, but her fingers kept brushing her coat pocket where her key rested, a small reassurance that she still had her own door. At the corner near the market, a man called out Mara's name. Mara stopped so abruptly Lio nearly bumped into her. The voice came from a stall selling oranges and walnuts. An older woman stood there, round-faced, bright-eyed, the kind of neighbor who knew everyone's business and called it care. She waved a hand and hurried over, her apron flapping. "Mara, sweetheart," she said, breathless. I heard you had a little trouble last night. Mara's face strained. Lio felt his stomach sink. Trouble. The word was soft, but it carried a shape: rumor, story, audience. Mara forced a smile that looked painful. I'm fine, she said. The older woman clucked sympathetically. Of course you are. Of course. Kellen was here early, she added, lowering her voice as if confiding something tender. He seemed so worried. Poor man. He said you've been acting strangely, that you've been confused, and that some people are taking advantage of you. Mara's lips parted. Her eyes flicked to Lio for a fraction of a second, and Lio felt the hook tried to sink into him: anger, defensiveness, the urge to argue with the neighbor, to set the record straight. He remembered Dr. Berne's paper: listen for 2 messages. Answer only the surface message if it is reasonable. Do not answer the hidden one. The surface message was this: the neighbor had heard something and was worried. The hidden message was poisonous: Mara is unstable, Lio is dangerous, Kellen is the caring one. Lio kept his face calm. We're on our way to an appointment, he said politely. Thanks for checking in. The neighbor's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened again. An appointment, she echoed. With that doctor? Mara's shoulders tightened. The neighbor leaned closer. I don't mean to meddle, she whispered, which was always a lie people told right before they did exactly that. But Kellen said that place puts ideas in people's heads. He said they make you blame the ones who love you. Mara's breath caught. Lio watched the words land. They were designed to make her doubt the Institute. To make her doubt her own clarity. To make her doubt Lio. Mara's face flushed, and her mouth opened. Lio could almost see the argument forming in her throat, the desperate need to prove she wasn't confused. Lio spoke first, still calm. Mara can decide what she believes, he said. We're leaving now. He gently touched Mara's elbow, light, not gripping, and guided her forward. Mara walked, stiff, eyes wide. Behind them, the neighbor's voice floated after them like a sweet-smelling fog. I'm just saying, dear, she called. Be careful who you listen to. They kept moving until the market noise faded. Mara's voice came out rough. He's already doing it, she said. Lio nodded. He's building a story. Mara's hands clenched. And people will believe it because it sounds like concern. Leo's jaw tightened. That's why it's dangerous. They reached the Institute. The brass plate gleamed innocently in the morning light, as if nothing dark had happened near its side gate. Inside, the waiting room smelled the same: tea, old paper, calm, but Lio noticed how Mara's eyes darted to corners, to the painting, to the hallway. The heron watched from the pond, still impatient, but today it seemed less like peace and more like vigilance. Sarah met them quickly, her face composed. Dr. Berne is ready, she said. As they followed her down the corridor, Mara's steps slowed. Lio saw her breathing change, her shoulders rise. The old hallway inside her was opening again, the one where saying no meant danger, where calm smiles meant traps. Dr. Berne's office door was open. He stood near the desk, and when he saw Mara, his expression softened slightly, not into pity, but into respect. Mara, he said. Come in. Mara entered as if crossing a threshold that mattered. Lio followed, but Dr. Berne lifted a hand. Lio, he said gently. Wait outside for a little. Lio hesitated. Mara's eyes flashed toward him, fear sharp in them. Dr. Berne noticed. He spoke softly, addressing Mara as much as Lio. This is not to isolate you, he said. It is to let you hear your own adult voice without anyone else's rhythm in the room. Mara swallowed. Then she nodded once, small but deliberate. Lio stepped back into the corridor. The door closed, and the click sounded like a lock, though it wasn't. He sat on the waiting room chair under the heron painting. The air felt too still. He listened to the faint murmur of voices behind the office door, but he couldn't make out words. That was probably the point. Mara needed privacy from the audience Kellen was building. Minutes passed, slow and heavy. Then the front door of the Institute opened. Lio looked up. Kellen walked into the waiting room as if he had every right to be there. His coat was perfectly brushed. His hair was slicked back. His smile was in place, bright and friendly. To anyone watching, he would look like a concerned man seeking help for someone he loved. His eyes landed on Lio, and the smile sharpened into something private. Well, Kellen said softly, as if greeting an old friend. There you are. Leo's pulse spiked. He stood slowly, keeping his posture neutral. Kellen's gaze drifted to the heron painting, then back to Lio. I didn't expect to see you here alone, he said. Where's Mara? Lio remembered the advice. No arguing. No proving. No feeding the hidden message. Keep to reality. Mara is in session, Lio said evenly. She asked for privacy. Kellen's eyebrows lifted slightly. Privacy, he echoed, amused. From me? Lio didn't answer the implied question. He kept his tone plain. From everyone. Kellen chuckled softly and stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing something intimate. You know, he said, you're doing a lot of damage for someone who thinks he's helping. The words were crafted to hook Leo's guilt. To make him defend himself. To make him argue, to raise his voice, to look unstable in a quiet waiting room. Lio felt heat rise in his chest. He pictured his own childhood kitchen, the tired voice saying, you always make things harder. He recognized the old script's pull, prove you're good, prove you're not the problem. He took a breath and chose the calm mask. I'm not discussing this with you, Lio said. Kellen's smile widened, and his eyes glittered. Ah, he murmured. There it is. He turned slightly, as if addressing an invisible audience. See? He said louder now, so the receptionist at the desk could hear. This is what I mean. He shuts down conversation. He isolates her. He acts like he owns her time. Leo's stomach turned. Kellen had brought the audience with him. The receptionist looked up, uncertain. Another person in the waiting room, an older man with a cane, glanced between them. Kellen's voice stayed smooth. I'm worried about her, he said warmly. And he won't even let me speak to her. That's not normal. Lio felt the trap tighten. If he argued, he played the angry villain. If he stayed silent, Kellen filled the silence with his story. The receptionist cleared her throat. Sir, she said carefully to Kellen, patients have privacy here. Kellen's face softened into gratitude. Of course, he said. I respect that. I do. I'm not asking to barge in. I just want to know she's safe. Safe. The word was a lever. It made everyone in the room feel responsible. Leo's hands clenched at his sides. He kept his voice steady. She's safe, he said. This is a professional place. Kellen nodded slowly as if Lio had confirmed something sad. Professional, he repeated. Yes. That's the word people use when they're hiding behind rules. Leo's pulse hammered. Kellen was trying to make the Institute's boundaries look like cruelty. He was trying to make privacy look like control. Kellen leaned closer again, voice low, for Lio alone. You can't keep her from me, he whispered. Not forever. She always comes back. Lio felt a cold wave move through him. The certainty in Kellen's tone wasn't just arrogance. It was script deep. It was the belief that the ending belonged to him. Before Lio could respond, the office door opened. Dr. Berne stepped into the hallway, calm as ever. His eyes swept the waiting room, taking in Kellen, Lio, the receptionist, the small cluster of attention. Kellen, Dr. Berne said, voice even. You are not a patient here. Kellen turned, smile brightening as if pleased to be recognized. Dr. Berne, he said warmly. Thank you for seeing me. I'm worried about Mara. Dr. Berne's gaze didn't soften. You have no appointment, he said. And you have been told clearly that Mara's sessions are private. Kellen spread his hands slightly. I'm not asking to sit in, he said. I'm asking to speak to her afterward. Just a moment. I care about her. Dr. Berne held Kellen's gaze. The room seemed to quiet around them. You care about access, Dr. Berne said. The words were simple, but they cut cleanly through Kellen's velvet. Kellen's smile faltered for the briefest moment, then returned. That's unfair, he said, and the wounded hero tone slid into place. I've supported her. I've sacrificed for her. And now I'm treated like a threat. Dr. Berne's voice remained level. If you want to support her, he said, you will respect her boundaries. Kellen's eyes narrowed. And if her boundaries are being manipulated? He asked, lifting his chin slightly. If she's being influenced by someone who benefits from keeping her isolated? The words landed like stones thrown into still water. The receptionist's eyes widened. The older man with the cane shifted, attentive. Lio felt the room tilt. This was Kellen's new ending, not a private guilt game, but a public suspicion game. Paint the Institute as a cult. Paint Lio as a controller. Paint Mara as confused. Dr. Berne didn't flinch. Mara is capable of choosing, he said. And her choice includes the right not to see you. Kellen's smile turned thin. Then let her say that to my face, he said. Let her tell me she wants no contact. In front of you. In front of him. If she's truly choosing. Lio's stomach dropped. It sounded reasonable. It sounded fair. It was poison. Because it forced Mara into a confrontation she hadn't asked for, under pressure, with an audience. It invited her child part to take over, fear of conflict, fear of abandonment, fear of being called cruel. It invited her to collapse or explode, either of which would serve Kellen's story. Dr. Berne's eyes hardened slightly. No, he said simply. You will not demand a performance from her. Kellen's nostrils flared. His smile stayed, but it looked glued on now. A performance, he echoed. That's what you think this is? Dr. Berne stepped closer, not aggressive, just present. Yes, he said. That is what you are trying to create. The waiting room held its breath. Kellen's gaze flicked toward the office door, and for a moment Lio wondered if Mara could hear any of this. Lio hoped she couldn't. He hoped Dr. Berne had given her room thick enough to keep Kellen's voice out. Kellen turned back to Dr. Berne. So you won't let her speak to me? He said, voice rising slightly. You won't let me check on her. Interesting. Dr. Berne's expression stayed calm. If you continue, he said, I will ask you to leave. And if you refuse, we will call for help. Kellen laughed softly, shaking his head as if this were all absurd. Help, he repeated, eyes glittering. You mean you'll bring in someone with authority to force me out? He looked around the waiting room again, eyes catching on each face like hooks. Do you hear this? He asked the room, still polite, still smiling. This is what I mean. They don't want dialogue. They want control. Lio felt his chest tighten. The game was spreading like ink. Then the office door opened again. Mara stepped out. Her face was pale. Her eyes were clearer than before, though, like someone who had stood under a bright light and decided not to blink. She looked at Kellen, and for a moment the air between them vibrated with all the old lines they had spoken in old rooms. Kellen's smile softened into something tender. Mara, he said, as if relief had flooded him. There you are. I've been so worried. Mara's breath trembled once, but she didn't step toward him. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. Dr. Berne's gaze flicked to her, steady, supportive without rescuing. Mara looked at Kellen and spoke in a voice that wasn't loud, but didn't need to be. I don't want to talk to you, she said. The waiting room went so quiet that the hum of the lamps became noticeable. Kellen's smile froze. His eyes widened slightly, the wounded hero ready to rise. Mara continued, still steady. I want you to leave. Kellen's face twitched, and for a heartbeat the mask slipped enough for Lio to see something sharp underneath: anger, humiliation, hunger for control. Then Kellen exhaled slowly and nodded as if accepting a tragedy. He turned to the room again, voice thick with false sorrow. You see? He said. This is what they've done. Mara's jaw clenched. She didn't respond. She didn't take the bait. She simply stood there, holding her boundary like a door held closed from the inside. Dr. Berne spoke, calm as stone. Kellen, he said. Leave. For a moment Kellen didn't move. His eyes stayed on Mara's face as if searching for the child in her to crack and apologize. Mara didn't. Kellen's smile thinned. He gave a small bow, theatrical, and stepped backward toward the door. As you wish, he said softly to Mara, and the words carried a promise that wasn't kind. I hope you remember this. Then he left, the bell above the door chiming the same innocent chime it always did, as if a storm hadn't just walked out. The waiting room stayed silent for several breaths. The receptionist let out a shaky exhale and looked down at her desk as if grateful for paper and pen, for anything normal. Mara's shoulders sagged slightly, but her eyes stayed bright, alert. Dr. Berne turned to her gently. You did well, he said. Mara swallowed. It felt like my throat was full of needles, she whispered. Dr. Berne nodded. That is often how the adult voice feels at first when the script is loud. Lio stepped closer, careful. Mara, he said softly. Mara looked at him, and a shaky laugh escaped her, half relief and half disbelief. He tried to make it a play, she said. He tried to make me act. Lio nodded. And you didn't. Mara's gaze drifted to the front door where Kellen had exited. He's not done, she whispered. Dr. Berne's eyes stayed calm, but there was no denial in them. No, he said quietly. He will look for another stage. Mara's fingers curled. What stage? Dr. Berne glanced at the folder under Leo's arm, then back to Mara. The one outside this building, he said. Where he has more audience than we do. Lio felt cold settle in his stomach. Mara's voice tightened. He's going to tell everyone I'm unstable. Dr. Berne nodded once. He may. Mara looked down, breathing hard, then lifted her chin again. Then I need to keep my adult voice, she said, as if making a vow. Not just here. Everywhere. Dr. Berne's expression softened with something like approval. Yes, he said. And you will? Mara stepped closer to the heron painting and stared at it for a long moment, as if borrowing its stillness. Then she turned back. Dr. Berne, she asked, voice quiet. What if he comes to my work next? What if he comes to my building? What if he comes to my friends? Dr. Berne's gaze held hers. Then you will see the invitations, he said. And you will choose. Mara nodded slowly, but her eyes flicked to Lio, and Lio saw the fear still there, coiled like a small animal in the corner. As they prepared to leave, Sarah appeared at the end of the corridor, moving quickly. Her face was composed, but her eyes were sharp. Doctor, she said, voice low. Someone is waiting outside. Dr. Berne's expression didn't change. Who? Sarah swallowed once. A man in a fine coat, she said. But not Kellen. Leo's blood ran cold. Sarah continued. He says he represents someone. He says he has a message for Mara. Mara's face tightened. A message? Dr. Berne's eyes narrowed slightly, not with fear, but with focus. He looked at Mara. You do not have to receive anything you do not want, he said. Mara's jaw clenched. What does he want? Sarah's voice dropped further. He said, she murmured, that if Mara keeps refusing to talk, the story will be told without her. The words hung in the air, heavy as fog. Lio felt the city beyond the Institute's walls shift, as if the board had been reset again, pieces moved into new positions. Mara's hands curled into fists, then slowly relaxed. She lifted her chin and spoke with a steady voice that sounded like a door locking from the inside. Let him wait, she said. I'm done performing. Question of the day, what's the most common game you catch yourself falling into, trying to fix someone, proving you're right, or feeling guilty for saying no? Drop your answer in the comments, and also tell me the next audiobook you want retold on Momentum Mind. If this helped you spot the hidden script before it hooks you, hit like and subscribe to join the momentum, because clarity is a skill, and we're building it together.